Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well. So today I wanted to record this little message around money blocks. Now if you identify with being a generational curse breaker, and don't worry if that's something you don't really know, it's something that does unfold for you over time, and you can eventually, as you come into remembrance of what you're really here to do, especially if it's tied to your purpose, then it will be made known to you that this is something that you have to overcome. Nevertheless, sometimes the harder part on your journey is really identifying the blocks that you have to overcome. And once you know that, the easier part is, looking for the right solutions so that you can overcome those blocks. So in this video, I really want to talk about how you can identify this block, if it's something that you have to deal with, especially if you identify with being a generational curse breaker, and then how to go about actually overcoming this block. Now, there are actually 3 key ways that you can actually identify this block. Now, the first one is look to your family line. And the question I want you to ask is, do you have anybody in your extended family that's extremely wealthy? Now, I just want to be clear that when I'm talking about, extremely wealthy or being wealthy, I'm talking about those who know how to build and pass on generational wealth. If the answer is, yeah, I know a couple of, families in my extended family that are wealthy, if not necessarily your parents especially, but, not to the extent of having generational wealth, then you still might be, carrying this block, and it might be something that you need to really work on. Because the truth is, making money and really having an understanding of how to multiply it and really invest it to grow it to a point of generational wealth are 2 very different things. Like you can have a lot of rich people around you, but they may have terrible spending habits. They may not invest it to grow it more. As long as that money keeps coming in, it looks like they're wealthy, but really they're spending as much as they are earning. That's not wealth. So you want to really take a look at that. And just from your, those family members that you do have around you, if it's not your immediate parents or your siblings, etc., then that could be a good indication to take a look at what the patterns look like around in your family. The second way you want to be able to identify if you have this block is take a look at how your family actually talks about money. If you've ever heard any of these phrases that I'm going to mention, there's a pretty good chance that you are dealing with a money block. You want to look for phrases like, we can't afford that. I would never spend that much money on that item. Money doesn't grow on trees. That's a really popular one. We all know that one. And you have to really work hard to make money. Unless you work hard, you won't be successful. So all of these sorts of phrases, whether you heard them in your childhood, whether your parents still reference them, that's a good indication that you may be struggling with this block. Now, the third sign you can look for is look at the behavior within your family members. Take a look at their spending habits. Take a look at, their general patterning. Have they, spent their life sacrificing family time for money? How do they feel about money? Do they work endless jobs because they think that the only way to make money is, working 2 jobs or 3 jobs to bring in all that money into the family so that, your family can have a good life? So taking a look at all of that will tell you what your DNA patterning looks like. And if it's, within the family, you've probably got it too. Because often what you hear about money, it ends up becoming your own values, your own beliefs around that topic. And so whether you're aware of it or not, you're probably repeating those same patterns you've seen, you've heard, the way you think, and what your family, the way that they think and the way that they move around money is naturally going to be part of your pattern. Now, in case this really frustrates you, if you're like, I can't believe this, an awakening is hard enough, I can't believe I have to now deal with these money blocks as well. So here's a couple of things I want you to keep in mind when you start to think like that. First off, to be a generational curse breaker, you signed up for this task. So it's not something that's been placed on you. It's something you've agreed to try and help with. And most likely, if you got the task, you were built and designed to take care of this. You have what it takes to get your family through this, right? That is why you are the one that's come along at this time to do what you need to do to break these blocks. Number 3, so that's 2, right? You signed up for this task. 2, you're built different. You can take care of it. Number 3, you actually have way more information and resources than your ancestors did to tackle this sort of a block. Many of them did actually try, but they didn't understand energy. They didn't understand manifestation. They didn't understand, they just had the dream, the will, but not the information and resources that's available to you at your fingertips today. So they were not successful in really establishing the kind of wealth they probably dreamt of. So before you really feel sorry for yourself on this journey, understand that you're not the victim here. And also you have a lot to gain from removing this block. Not only are you freeing your family, but this is going to benefit you and your future generations if you do it right. So next I actually want to talk about, so how do you actually take care of it? Now, I just mentioned that you have a lot more resources to really tackle this sort of a money block. So understand first and foremost is in order to earn the kind of money that your ancestors probably thought of, or for you to have the kind of abundance that goes beyond what your family is used to, you are going to have to learn about money. And, there are a lot of resources out there. So the place that you really want to start is grabbing some really popular books around money to understand money, so that you can break the patterning, the understanding that you have around money, which you learned from society, your friends, your family, your education system, because real wealth, if you think about it, you will not learn it through the traditional education system. You need to do your own homework to understand money outside of that sphere to be able to successfully hold that kind of wealth. This information isn't going to walk itself to you. You are going to have to go find it. So I'm just going to name a couple of very popular books that is a great place to start. But of course, do your own research, see what suits you. The first one is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That is a great book for a beginner to really start to understand money and think about money differently than you probably understand it today. The second one is Think and Grow Rich. The third one that I'd like to recommend is The Psychology of Money. That's also a really great one. And I'll also toss in a fourth one, which is The Intelligent Investor. Now, as you expose yourself to this new knowledge through these books, this opens you up to step number 2, which is reprogramming your mind to think differently about money. A wealthy person is wealthy because they know how to invest their money. They know how to make it grow. Whereas the poor or the working class really knows how to save and also spend it. And so therefore they don't multiply that wealth. And so what you want to be able to do when you expose yourself to this kind of information and knowledge is to reprogram your subconscious mind about how you think about money so that you can, really earn that money and really work with it differently. So your true shift is really going to begin with you changing the way you speak about money and the way that you're going to utilize it moving forward. Now, step number 3, and this is possibly the most important, is regulating your emotions and your nervous system so that you can actually hold the wealth that you are trying to bring in and really work towards. Remember that money is energy. If you're overwhelmed, overly excited, and you can't regulate your nervous system, well, then you cannot hold on to that wealth. if you take a look at, stats, you will see that 70 to 80% of lottery winners, right, not really expecting to bring in that wealth, hold that wealth, actually go bankrupt within 2 years, they say. That tells you that you can get a whole lot of money, but if you don't know what to do with it, you don't have a regulated nervous system, you do not have the capacity to hold that kind of wealth, you are going to drill it back to the ground. You will not be able to contain it. And so you really, really need to educate yourself and then also regulate your nervous system so that when it comes in, you don't take these hasty steps, don't go on these shopping sprees, spend it in a crazy way. You actually know how to grow that wealth and how to hold on to that wealth through appropriate, you could say, planning, wealth management, having the right advice around you, etc. Now, last but not least is number 4. And this isn't really a step you need to follow, but it's something for you to be cautious of. When you have, you're trying to attract an abundance and you're trying to go from a place of, making 100,000 to maybe $1 million a year, that's a massive difference. But you want to make sure that you continue to cultivate that habit, that mindset, that money is just a tool. At no point in time should money be consuming you, controlling you, because it can be the root of evil. So you want to make sure that you take a detached approach to money, understanding that it's just there to really enhance your life and doesn't become, the root of other problems in your life. Don't be chasing money to the point where you can only think about having that money, holding on to that money, and you lose your own sense of self and your values through that process. So really, this all gets packaged together in order to really help you, one, remove the money block that your family might have a pattern of going through, but then also making sure that you're using it in a healthy manner moving forward. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope this was helpful. God bless.